I've actually been for the last 2 days, as I said, at a regional council meeting. And yesterday, during a 500, God, we drive huge distances in Central Otago, can I tell you? So yesterday, I think I covered about 450k driving it. Yeah, 450k driving by yourself. Gosh, you've solved most of the world's problems. You've written your own entire philosophy by the end of that journey. But I had one of those journeys yesterday. But in the midst of that journey, I attended a confidential briefing, which I shouldn't probably talk to you about, except I am going to, from Contact Energy. Now, Contact Energy are one of the major, four gentailers in this country. And for reasons that are beyond me, when the electricity reforms, what a joke, but when the electricity reforms went through that just made everything so much worse, not so much better, the gentailers, that's the people who generate electricity and also who retail it, like Contact, came into being. And for some strange reason, Contact was set up as one of the original four, I think it was, and they were given a variety of dams. So they ended up with the Clyde Dam, which I think is the largest dam in New Zealand. It's just down the road from me. And then the Roxburgh Dam that was made in the 1950s, I think, mid-1950s. But they didn't end up with the Waitaki dams, which is what, Benmore, Aviemore, and what's the other one? Well, Waitaki, of course. Or the Ohau or Tekapo dams. That belongs to somebody else. I think that's Meridian, but Contact have this dam. Don't ask me why. It makes no sense, but there you go. Now, we were called into a confidential briefing by our council, or offered it, because Contact Energy, and this is the fascinating part of energy reforms that I wanted to share with you, and how bad this country's got it. Contact Energy control three lakes. Lake Hāwea, all right, Lake Dunstan, which is a man-made lake. Lake Hāwea isn't. It's one of the original alpine lakes of Central Otago, of the Queenstown Lakes area, along with Wakatipu and Wanaka. And it's fed by the glaciers and all that sort of stuff. Mystic, beautiful, all that, as you would expect. But Lake Dunstan was created by the Clyde Dam, and Lake Roxburgh by the Roxburgh Dam. So you've got a natural dam, largely snow-fed, river-fed, beautiful streams and all that stuff, pristine water, Lake Hāwea, and then it flows down the Clutha River into the man-made dam of Lake Dunstan, goes through the Clyde Dam, and then it flows further down the Clutha River, goes into Lake Roxburgh, stored there for a wee while, and then it goes through the Roxburgh Hydro, and that's where we get our power generation from. Okay? All right. Now, Lake Contact Energy have built no generation capacity, no new dams ever. Okay? They've just decided, like most electricity energy companies or gentailers in this country, to be bastards. I mean, essentially, they're all bastards, all right? Gentailers in this country. So they, instead of actually building capacity, and I'll come to that in just a second, because they are into a bit of it, but I'll come to that in just a second. They've decided that they want to lower Lake Hāwea so that it becomes not so much a dust bowl as in it's a long way away from the shoreline, and it'll destroy, obviously, the ambience of that special and magnificent area. They want to lower Lake Hāwea so that they can get more water to go through their dams at Clyde and Roxburgh, all right? And as you would imagine, the locals are not happy, in part because the suggestion is that by lowering the Lake Hāwea, Josh, it will lower the aquifer, in other words, the water under the ground, that the locals use, and those who farm and on the plains as well, to drink. All right, so it'll lower the aquifer, so it either won't be available or could be polluted. And so there's an understandable concern from the locals that that might happen as a consequence. But the really interesting thing is, in this confidential briefing, none of which was confidential. All right, so they turned up and insisted upon it being confidential, but it wasn't. There was nothing that they said in the entire presentation that isn't a matter of public record or freely available from public sources, including from the platform when we talk about electricity generation in this country. It sort of reminded me, I've got to be very honest with you, with, I don't know, Jacinda Ardern, Verrill, Grant Robertson, Chris Hipkins not turning up at the COVID-2 inquiry. We've said everything in private, we don't need to say it in public. Yeah, but then, why would you insist upon saying something in confidence when it's freely available, all that fact and information in public? God knows why. You'd have to ask Contact Energy. I tried to ask them that, but then we started to have a bit of an argument. Anyhow, they want to lower Lake Hāwea for the purposes of generating additional hydro capacity until 2042. All right, so they want to lower it down, and whenever the rain doesn't fall, and I'll come to that in just a second as well, they want to lower the lake well beyond the capacity, the legal constraints at the moment, to the point that really they're almost, well, I won't say there won't be a lake there, because there will be. It'll just be a long, long way away. All right, that's fine. Anyhow, now this is the really interesting thing. Why do they want to do that? Because they haven't been building any capacity that can cope with New Zealand's weather. They've been putting investment, have Contact Energy into solar and wind and geothermal expansion, true, but that won't generate enough power, they say, to service the needs of New Zealand. So as we had that problem last year, and we almost had that problem again this year, no, we still have that problem, New Zealand is running out of electricity. And this isn't just a Contact problem, this is a national problem, and we've talked about it on the platform. So for the months of winter, we won't have enough electricity to satisfy the current needs of New Zealand, let alone the future needs of our country, particularly as it goes through its transformation to electrify the nation, for reasons that still make no sense to me. Contact Energy also did something else yesterday, and that was suggest that, gas, which we all know is true, and again we've talked about it, so there's nothing confidential about what I'm about to say, how bad gas has got. So in other words, gas has fallen off a cliff, and it won't be there after 2030 in any rate capacity. And really, that's not very far away, 2030, to help us through winter. So we won't be able to burn the gas, because guess what? We're not finding any more, and the last government didn't want to go explore for that either. And we suddenly don't have that capacity. And even if we found it, we probably wouldn't get it on shore before 2030 anyhow. So it's a problem. I can't stress how much of a problem this really is for New Zealand. But although we have had commentators on the platform and on the show in particular making exactly that point, including Craig Stover. But the really interesting thing is that instead of building dams, the meridians, the contacts of this place, the mighty rivers, etc., instead of in actual fact doing that since the 1990s to create the cheapest and most effective source of energy in this country, that is apart from nuclear, and which is hydro, they've built nothing. All right? They call themselves gentailers. Yeah, just the generation part's missing, frankly. They're retailers. And the reason why they haven't built anything like that is because they've been seeking to maximize their profits so that they can give it to their shareholders. Oh yes, they've built the occasional solar farm and the occasional wind farm, but that only is reliant upon, guess what? Sun and wind. And what happens in winter, people? It doesn't shine as much sun, does it? Roughly half the number of sunshine hours, and there is no wind, mostly throughout New Zealand, in winter. So we don't have the capacity for solar and from wind farms in winter, which is really when we need it, particularly for heating and industry, because it's not there. And ipso facto, Contact and a variety of other gentailers have got together to try and store coal in Huntly from Indonesia to get them through to roughly 2035, but even then, that depends upon a government that comes in and says, and just imagine if the Greens get it, the next thing, no coal. They're trying to get coal out of Fonterra, coal out of all the school boiler houses. You can imagine what their response will be to Huntly. Listen, you can't, my view is, that our electricity rescue, or it can't be left to the very same gentailers whose lack of investment and financial rapacity over the last 20 to 30 years caused the shortage in the first place. You can't trust Contact Energy or any of them. They're a monopoly cartel determined upon only two things. One, maximising profit for their shareholders. Two, avoiding regulation either from central government or from any of the responsible authorities. Yes, I am cynical about this. So we're reliant upon Huntly and its coal-fired power station to get us through the next 2 or 3 winters, maybe the next 10, all right? Gas is declining dramatically, but surely that should have been obvious to the gentailers. After all, aren't you in this business of creating electricity? Yes, of course you are. So you can't turn around and say, oh my God, suddenly there's no gas there. You should have known it was your bloody job, for Pete's sake. So there we go. I don't know why the confidential briefing was there yesterday from Contact Energy. No idea. Everything they said was a matter of public record, or we have discussed, or a matter of public commentary from everybody. But this is the reason why the electricity market is broken. Because the people who are responsible for solving it have a twisted and perverted idea. And that is that their primary responsibility is to their shareholders to maximise profit and whatever the conditions are to return that profit to their shareholders. They want to do everything to avoid proper generation in this country. There are no new dams being built in this country. Why? Since the Clyde Dam. Small-scale electricity products that have very little impact at all. It is time for the government to step in. It has failed the electricity industry model. It has failed categorically, and it's just about to hit crisis. It's sort of there already, really, but it's going to get worse. And the contacts of this always want to go to the easy solution. We'll just drain the lakes. It's all right. Doesn't matter. Put it through the hydro. We don't need to worry about it at all. We don't need to worry about the aesthetics. We don't live here. And we can then still maximise our profits and sell it to TY Point. And there's the other interesting thing about this. You think Manapori is only dedicated to servicing TY Point at the Bluff, don't you? A good amount of the energy that's created out of Clyde Dam doesn't go into the national grid, ladies and gentlemen. It goes to one particular overseas-owned entity at TY Point, run by Rio Tinto, or the New Zealand aluminium smelters as well. So that's where a lot of that energy, if you're saying, well, doesn't all that energy come out of Clyde, and go into the grid and isn't available to us? No, because Contact Energy have signed a contract with that particular outlet. And why? To maximise profit. I am deeply cynical of the electricity industry. I'm deeply cynical of gentailers. I'm deeply cynical of any solution coming out of that lot. It is time for the government to intervene. That's why we create governments. Sorry, it's just really annoyed me that here we are expected, the rest of us, to fall in with them now and their plans to rescue this country, when successive governments, the Electricity Commission, for God's sake, the Commerce Commission and the likes, have been failing us, the very, very people that we expect. We know we can't trust gentailers. Everybody knows that. They're motivated by profit. That's fine. If you're going to work that way, then you need strong regulation, but that has been missing as well.